This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
This podcast is brought to you by TeamTrade, a digital solution that helps you hire, optimize, and retain employees. Using psychometric assessments to identify more than 100 professional mindset traits, it gives instant reports you can use to build high-performing teams. Get 2 free profiles today, no commitment, no credit card required, at teamtrait.com. TeamTrait.com. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop, and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
In order to protect the innocent, don't name names, Lee, but you have a story about a boss. What did you guys call him? He had a nickname.
Well, so this guy, this was early in my career, and I'm an idea guy. I've always been an idea guy. And so it was incredibly frustrating for me to deal with this guy because he was notorious for starting projects but never finishing them. And the thing is, the other man, he got a reputation such that the other managers in the company called him Mr. Loose Ends Incorporated. That was his. That's what he was known as in the company. But it's like incredibly frustrated to deal with him. And eventually what happened was, me and some of the other people, we just stopped taking ideas to him just because we knew that either nothing was going to happen with them, or worse yet, or whatever, somehow we were going to get blamed for the fact that this idea never got executed. So I was no, we were done. And I don't really feel like we served the company very well by doing that. But at the same point, I was frustrated.
So Loose Ends Incorporated is not one of the 9 boss archetypes in Eric's book, but we have a great guest today to talk about, difficult bosses. You guys are going to love the name of his book too. So welcome to Manage Smarter, everyone. My name is Audrey Strong. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications here at Sales Fuel.
And I'm C. Lee Smith. I am the CEO and founder of Sales Fuel.
And my boss, and I'm not saying anything about you during this discussion. Okay. Eric Charran is our guest. He's a visionary tech executive, author, and thought leader. More than 25 years of experience in transforming global enterprises through digital innovation, data-driven strategy, and AI-driven solutions. Known for his ability to bridge the gap between business objectives and complex technology, Eric has spearheaded transformative initiatives in major organizations, Microsoft and Capital One, a couple of his clients there, served as chief architect and bringing substantial advances in cloud resilience, digital transformation, and data infrastructure efficiency. Okay, but the book is why we have him here as well. All of that great experience. Here's the name of the book, guys. Have you ever had a boss that ... Succeeding in a dysfunctional workplace? It offers his readers, and I think we can all relate, a guide to navigating workplace challenges, enhancing personal effectiveness, and fostering a balanced, happily, which you are not, fulfilling career. Eric Charran, thank you for coming. And so I told Lee the one question I wanted to start with is, what the heck happened to you that you wrote this book?
Yes. And what do your current bosses think about it?
Well, that's yet to be determined. I hope that they realize that I just transitioned into working for a new organization. I work for Intuit, so hopefully they realize that a lot of this has nothing to do with them.
Okay,
it's all about Microsoft. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually even predates Microsoft and some of my other organizations. And Lee, it's very interesting that you brought up what you said with Loose Ends Incorporated resonated with me, because that is kind of one of the archetypes that I've described.
Yeah.
And I use archetypes in this book as a way to kind of categorize and bag up unhelpful behaviors. We're not trying to incriminate people for having the wrong tools in the toolbox, but we're trying to help individuals that are working under leaders with the wrong leadership tools in their toolbox to kind of help put the right ones in the toolbox and realize that you're empowered to do that. So the big question, I think, Audrey, you were asking, which is like, how did we get here, right? How did I get on this podcast today? And it all had to deal with the fact that I'm a Gen Xer. I've been around for a little bit. I'm probably approaching mid-career, depending on how you look at things. And I realized that there are some folks out there in my professional sphere that are just undergoing angst and challenges and shock and horror and disbelief at some of these unhelpful behaviors. Most of them feel like that these unhelpful behaviors are being done to them. They've done something to engender this response. It's unfair. It's me only. What am I doing wrong? I feel like I'm doing everything. And I know this because I kind of went through it myself. Now,
Wow.
don't get me wrong, sometimes that's the case, but in most times it's not. It's just the wrong tools in the toolbox. And so me and a bunch of other VPs were sitting around kind of just commiserating about a manager that had exhibited a plethora of these unhelpful behaviors. And we were focused on like, hey, here's what they said. Let me guess. Here's what they said next, and here's what they did. And then we said, well, here's what you do in order to accommodate for that. And we started giving the behaviors funny little names. And someone said, hey, somebody should write this down. And I go, okay, you know what? I'll write it down. And the book kind of just poured out right
Yes.
after that fact. And so that's kind of how it came to be.
Well, what I found interesting is that I recently published an ebook and actually made it part of my sales cred book, which was the 13 toxic types of salespeople. And it really wasn't about the toxic behaviors because we can all exhibit toxic behaviors accidentally from time to time. But my work there was researching then toxic personalities. So these things came up over and over and over again. So I really enjoyed your use of the term archetype. And Audrey, since you don't want to talk about me, I'll go ahead and fall on the sword here. So I used to be the raw nerve archetype where I would take things personally and everything like that. And then eventually I grew into my Gen X personality and stopped giving a shit. So, but that's where I started. I started off with the raw nerve and just finally grew out of it and realized it wasn't serving me well. And, you know, I take constructive criticism constructively. I assume positive intent, but I don't get all worked up about it like I used to.
Lee, that's so insightful because not only there's two observations I'm gathering from that. The first is that you were self-aware enough to say that, hey, you know what? Not only have I worked for some of these people, but I was, am, and used to be one of these people, and that's really the journey that I went on as I was writing this. Again, as it all came pouring out, I'm like, gosh, I am the amnesiac. I ask people to do things in the moment, and I forget that I did that, and I'm like, oh. Yeah, hey, can you do this for me? And they're like, you already asked us that. And I'm like, I'm better than I thought I was. But in reality, that means that I'm like things are not transitioning from ROM to RAM. They're not transitioning from short-term memory to long-term memory because I'm just overloaded. Results and pulse surveys and deliver meetings and all this kind of stuff. So I think
We
that
call
that's
that
really
lag,
awesome.
right? That.
Right, exactly. And I think that that's awesome that you were able to say that, hey, not only have I worked for these people, but that's also me. The other thing that I talk about in the book is the Q-tip principle. I obviously don't remember where I heard that from, so I can't give it proper accreditation. It didn't come from me, but Q-tip stands for quit taking it personal, which is ultimately the remedy for lots of these archetypes.
Yeah, not only the boss taking it personally, but also, you're talking about the employee taking it personally that has
Right.
the bad boss.
Yep.
Which one of
Yep.
these 9 archetypes do you consider to be the most toxic?
But I think it's a great question. I've been asked that before, Audrey, and it's kind of like, picking your favorite child almost. But in reality, I think it actually has to do with what type of person you are and
As the
what makes it most
receiver?
difficult.
I
Yes, as the
see.
re- as the
Okay.
receiver of these. So I'll give you
Yeah.
an example. I'll use myself as an example. I grew up constantly wondering where the next threat's going to come from. Like, how am I going to get caught out there unprepared? And so I'm a very like thought focused, like let me anticipate all of the ways this can go bad, and I will have mitigating strategies for each one of them. So I'm very big on preparedness. When I go into a C-level executive meeting, I am prepared to the nines, and I still get caught out there sometimes. However, if I have a manager that I talk about this in the attack sub archetype. So the attack sub archetype is a manager that runs silent and deep. Emails bounce off them, text messages are unread, Slack messages or Teams messages go by them. And all of a sudden, you're at an airport traveling for business, and then they erupt. Hey, can I call your cell phone? Yeah, I'm about to board. Hey, tomorrow morning meeting, I need you in with the CFO and the CIO. We're going to be reviewing our cloud architecture vendors, and I need you to put together a presentation. It should include who we're going to choose, why we're going to do it. I need some data in there. Just make it good, okay? And I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. Who's going to be in the meeting? What have they already heard? What are some of their objections? Does anybody have a preference? Am I going to be fighting uphill? And then they submerge, and they don't emerge again until they right at the outside the meeting physically. Let me see what you got. No, this is all wrong. Oh, this is terrible. No,
This
you
is a
missed this.
nightmare.
And then they're like, all right, we'll just do our best. Let's go in. So for me, somebody like me, that is one of the most challenging to deal with.
Okay.
Yeah, I would think that the emergency broadcaster is one. So this is the Chicken Little type of person where everything's a freaking crisis. And it's like that's got to be exhausting to the staff. I mean, I just can't imagine what that's like.
It's kind of like an infection almost, right? Like in the book, I give the example of how this actually, and I like to use narratives. I read a lot of self-help and professional help books, which give you great advice, but it's up to the reader to try to implement it. I try to give examples, both of how you're affected by it and then how you should try to approach it. So the example I gave, and these are all stories that happened to me. Everybody knows a VP's calendar is chock full of meetings, usually from about 9 a.m. until 6 or 7 in Eastern, if you're in the Eastern time zone or whatever your day looks like. But the only time that's unprotected is 7:30 to like 9. And so if this archetype wakes up, the emergency broadcaster, and is like, gosh, I just got a Slack message that we have a meeting today. Is anybody prepared for this? I don't remember this happening. Who's going to do the slides? Who's going to do the walkthrough? Let me throw a meeting on your calendar at 7:30. People are joining from dropping their kids off. Kids are screaming in the back seat. People are trying to balance their coffee cup in line at Starbucks while being on the Zoom call. And it is just disruptive and demoralizing as you go over information that you've already provided this manager. And now it's coming into their scope. The Eye of Sauron has kind of said, oh, now I need to pay attention to this, right? It's really frustrating and demoralizing.
And they don't do the pre-reads either, do they?
They do not. Sometimes I think they walk away with satisfaction that there was a pre-read, and that they can get back to it later. But again, I also focus on empathy, right? Like it's really entertaining to get caught up in these archetypes, but think about what that person is under. Myself as a semi-amnesiac,
Mhm.
right? Just the weight of emails, unread Slack messages. They're constantly that feeling that they're constantly behind, the anxiety associated with you're not caught up, right? It's all there. And the inability to transition from ROM to RAM, like that's what they're going under.
So what are the tips for finding, like you said, enhancing my personal effectiveness, feeling balanced and fulfilled and not miserable every second I'm at work, particularly if I'm working under a boss that is one of these archetypes and has zero self-awareness that they are one of the archetypes? I mean, you can't go
It's
up
a
to him and
really
go,
great,
you know what you are. You're an emergency broadcaster. That's the
right?
quickest way to get yourself fired.
Right. See, it's right here in this book, right?
And go, yeah, you need
Yeah,
this book.
right.
Read this checklist.
Turn to page 22. This is you.
Yes.
Yeah, that probably won't go over too well, right?
I don't think so. Yeah.
But it's a journey, and the journey
Okay.
begins with depending on where you are in your career and whether or not you've seen these behaviors before. Because eventually, what will happen is you are going to see these behaviors reoccur. Has nothing to do with the person. It's all about the tools in their toolbox. So the first realization is leaders lead how they were led. So leadership is interesting in an organization because it's a recognition, it's an implicit recognition of the organization's confidence that you can actually do things and lead other people in the achievement of things. The interesting thing is like there, especially in early leadership or middle management, not a lot of how you lead is leveled at this population. That's reserved for VPs, SVPs, and executives. Here's how you lead 1,000-person organization. Important, but where it's most critical is those early and middle managers that don't have the tools in the toolbox. And so the first realization is this is not necessarily being done to you. The behavior is shocking and horrifying, but at the same time, once you start to see it recur, you have to deal with the injustice of that emotion. I've been in the meetings where my amnesiac manager, because they forgot, is actually cutting across and killing my message to the executives. Not because it's part of some clever strategy for them to like be some sort of inside operative and be the opposition so that the others will be more friendly, good cop, bad cop. It's not that at all. They just plumb forgot. So they're asking questions like, who funded this research? Did we think this is a valuable product or project? So as you are just sweating from frustration. I can't believe this is happening. When it happens again and a third time and a fourth time, you have a choice to say, I can anticipate this now. I've seen this before. And now what do I do? What do I have the power to do? These behaviors suffer in silence. Like you said, these people may be unaware. And so you have to diplomatically make them aware to say, hey, I noticed in a meeting the other day that you were completely caught off guard by some of the proposals, and it kind of damaged the initiative that you and I did talk about. You got a lot on your plate, but here's what the impact of this behavior was. I want to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I'm going to make it easy on you to always get briefed before we go into these sessions by doing something for you. What is that for you? I don't know. What do you like? Do you want slide decks? Do you want text messages? Do you want me to brief you right before the session? Whatever the agreement becomes, that's kind of how you start to mitigate some of these behaviors and take back the power to say, I don't have to suffer under this. I can actually help you out of this together.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my question about, as far as you have a chapter in the book about growing your manager. And so we all have the need, if you will, to manage up. And so, what are some of your tactical pieces of advice that you have, for some of these archetypes, basically for managing up, managing your manager?
Managing your manager is hard. Especially if you're early in career, these people literally hold your economic and your economic velocity and your career velocity in their hands. And there's a sense of reverence and a sense of respect that comes with that. But that doesn't mean that you are there just to take orders and ask if you want fries with that. It means that you have the opportunity to say, listen, there are growth areas for me, growth areas for you. You're a person just like I am. You're a few years on in your career, and that's terrific. Let's work together to achieve an outcome. Here's what I can do for you, because your job, I think successful people make their managers' lives easier. They make their leaders' lives easier, whether that's being a source of knowledge, whether that's counseling them when they need to be counseled, whether that's providing advice, or it's just doing small things like preparing briefings or making sure that they're prepared before a meeting. And I think that managers are more friendly when you get them to a spot where they're listening and open to listen. If you come at them with a bunch of data and say, hey, your behavior is affecting me in this way, and that's affecting productivity, and it has these things, the manager's not willing to listen, or they're not in a place of vulnerability to accept that feedback, it'll bounce off them like bullets in Superman. So you have to say, hey, your job must be really tough. It must be tough managing all the emails and Slack messages that you get. That's got to be really challenging. And here I come with another meeting for our C-level executives coming up tomorrow that you're going to have to remember. What can I do to help you? How can I help you understand this, and that you're bolstering my points in that meeting and not, potentially accidentally being on the other side of me in that meeting? And there you're talking about not an incrimination. You're talking about working together to solve a problem. And it's a mutual problem, not the fact that the boss has these bad behaviors or these unhelpful behaviors, but how do we prevent it together? And I think that that talking point says, first of all, hey, you understand what it's like to sit behind my desk. The second is, you're not incriminating me. You're saying you're being proactive and you want to work together. So let me participate in this.
Do you have any other anecdotes from your career or from the book that are teachable? More tips? I love that. Is a tip. Did you ask somebody to mentor you that's being difficult and appeal to their ego and sense of, I could learn a lot from you, and just see if you
can learn something from everybody, even a bad boss. So that's,
yeah, I mean,
when someone complains to me, I just tell them, I just say, start a notebook, write down the things you don't like or the things that you do differently. And when you get the opportunity then to manage a group of people, whatever, try it out and see if it works.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like every leader is on their own journey to continually find the right tools. Just because, by the way, just because you have the right tools for your last team doesn't mean you have the right tools for the team that you have or the scope that you have. As a leader that's self-aware, you got to continually be revising how you lead and testing and determining if the tool is in the right shape. Do I need a hammer? Do I need a screwdriver for this situation? Well, last time in this exact same situation, I used a hammer. This time I need a screwdriver. So it's strange, right? So there's that aspect of things. But I think, Audrey, to answer your question, like, what are some other ways in which you deal with some of these difficult behaviors? Let me go back to the attack sub. If you've got a manager that is impervious to any type of preparation, and your requests for clarification in high pressure situations bounce off them because they're running too deep in deep waters. One of the coping strategies that I kind of talk about is channel switching. Usually attack sub managers are so overwhelmed with and saturated. Their channels are saturated. Their email inbox has 3,000 unread items. Their Slack
Wow.
is just, they don't even look at them. Their text messages have like, if you're on iPhone, it has like 300 over the little green bubble, right? Like for iMessage, right?
300. I haven't
So
seen 300 in years.
yeah, yeah, it happens though, Lee. Like I've seen people. My son is like this, right?
No, I mean
So
my number's much higher than that.
oh, your number's much higher. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so these folks are out there, whether they're bad texters, bad emailers, or sometimes I've seen people like I've been with my attack sub manager and he looks at the phone and he's like, "Yeah, I know exactly what to do there," and then puts the phone down, right? And just doesn't complete the task.
Mm.
So to accommodate for that, you have to utilize novelty. Like sometimes I'll send like an email and then I'll just send, hey, I'll send a text message to say, hey, I just sent you an email. So if you can look at it, just check it out. And because I don't normally text them, that's a novel channel usage.
Next time,
Uh,
send him a meme.
whatever it might be. But
Yeah.
if it's Teams, maybe I'll send you a text. If it's email, I'll send you a Teams message. Or you have to switch, but you have to do judiciously because what you're trying to do is to maintain the novelty. If you start texting them all the time, that saturation hits and they're like, I'm just
Right.
going to ignore texts from Eric.
Right.
Right. So you then have to say, you have to and I talk about how to find that right balance in dealing with the attack sub manager. But
And you can
channel
also
saturation, channel switching is key.
send them a well-written letter. Actually, and I've
A
actually
snail
used
mail.
note cards before. Actually, come to think of it, I actually have note cards printed, with the
Wow.
name on it and everything like that, so I can just jot off a quick note and give it to them or whatever. It really stands out.
That's a good idea.
But I tell you, the other thing you really don't want to do with that kind of manager is like stop writing in paragraphs. For God's sakes, please don't do that. It's like
That's exactly right.
just give us some bullet points. I've had time to consume those maybe, and because I see a bunch of paragraphs or whatever, I'm just like, I'll get back to that later, and then sometimes I don't.
That's right. That's right. And as an executive, I barely go beyond the fold, right, on my device, right? And so like I'll read the first through and like, no, this is way too detailed. I'll scroll to the bottom and say, is there any asks for me? If there's not, I'm sure somebody will come back to me and tell me what they really need me to do later. Right. So that is a key element
That's
of
a good
how
one.
and
I'm going
in
to start
Yeah,
sending
yeah.
Lee that in my emails back to him. What do
just
you
make
want?
I do that
sure
already.
just make sure it fits on the screen, right? And
Okay.
that's a super tip that I learned and it works really well. The other one is making sure that you use novelty appropriately. I had a raw nerve manager who, I had a team where we were working to figure out, again, it's the cloud vendor selection criteria. These things require lots of data. It requires lots of research. We spent 2 months on figuring out doing bake-offs. And then we're in the meeting, we're about to present our results, and the manager comes in and the raw nerve says, you know what, I was reading on Reddit last night that nobody likes this particular vendor and they were trashing it on Reddit. So I feel that we should not utilize this vendor.
On Reddit? What? That never
Reddit is a
happens.
dumpster fire.
This is a true story. It's a true story. It's in the book also.
Wow. Yeah.
But this and they were ready to make that decision. We had to leave that meeting, and then we had to figure out. I had to figure out how to backtrack. And so in the book, I talk about, Audrey, you're asking about coping strategies. I actually reached out to one of our stakeholders who was at the same level as my manager at the time. And I said, listen, I feel like we've got, there's some good instincts and some instinctual, opinions on that meeting, but here's the data underneath it. And I want to make sure we make the right decision, not, for the organization, but for you as well, stakeholder. So let me fire up an email. I'm going to include you and my manager on the email and say, hey, listen, while we've got some initial instinctual, good perspectives, here's the data. Now let's make sure we make the right choice together. Does that make sense to you, stakeholder? Stakeholder's like, yeah, absolutely. Reddit, are you kidding? I will pile on after you send this. And you can't be seen as going behind your manager's back to, kind of collaborate. So in that, CC your manager and say, listen, I'm going to reach out to our stakeholder. I'm going to CC you and just say, hey, while we've got your opinion, we've got some data, and I just want to get the stakeholder's perspective and get them to weigh in.
So your LinkedIn is Eric Charran, and I want to spell your last name. It was Eric with a C, everybody, and then it's CHARRAN. And the book is on Amazon. I saw that. It's out and on today. And how do you want people to reach out to you?
Reach out to
Just
me on
for-
LinkedIn.
Okay.
Write reviews. Ask me questions on the Amazon reviews. Go to Goodreads. It's there too. It's in Barnes and Noble and a bunch of other stores. I'd love to hear from you. Looking forward to seeing what you think.
Sounds good. Eric, thanks for being on the show. This has been great tips and really a fun discussion.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at salesfuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.